or Happy Passover, as one might say in English. Yeah, Passover started tonight at sunset. It's already sunset, and it is Saturday, the 27th of March. And, boy, it had to start on a Saturday, right? Way to totally start off with a depressive vibe, but it is what it is. I mean, all things considered, the story of Passover, as much as anything else, begins with sadness, sorrow, bitterness, anger, hatred, things of that nature. And so, in theme with that, I decided today's Sadurday, or Saturday, should be within that theme, you know. And so for that, and I'm going to start with some tragic tales that describe that peace in all of us that yearns for a reason to it all. The first one is more in theme with Passover in the sense that it's a matter of life and death of people that are important to us, and while it was never mentioned that the Israelites particularly experienced death necessarily, they did experience a lot of anger, and they did experience a lot of frustration, and there certainly was at least some death to be had for the opposing side. So with that out of the way, I will begin with chapters 1 and 2 of Kit Kit and Kit Kat, Tales of Extraordinary Beings, Book 3. You can find it on my website, and I'll have the other sources for stories I've chosen for this in the description below as well, so that you can cross-examine what I found. Alright, let's begin. Chapter 1, The Birth of Teamwork, a freaking cute prologue. Because we have to start it out, you know, giving you something to root for with the characters before I subject them to the usual. Deep within the Yosemite National Park, behind the pine trees, behind a sparkling waterfall inside a rock formation, two foxes greet the world in the natural way. A new mother fox greeted her adorable fox kids with a lick. A proud father nuzzled the two. The sound of a waterfall was easily heard within the cavern and made for a tranquil environment. Those reading this may wish to play Morning Mood by Peer Gynt to get a feel for the environment. The kids began feeding on their mom while she smiled, showing her fox fangs. It should be noted that the kids were completely deaf and blind and depended on their mother for the first couple weeks. During this time, their father brought their mother many fish and rodents, as these were staples of the fox diet. As weeks passed, the fox's fur went from a blackish color to a yellowish-gray color, and they could finally hear and see. Though the fox kids seldom strayed from their den, they could be found frolicking near it and sometimes tackling one another playfully. Kit Kit's mother began licking his fur while Kit Kat was being licked by her father. They were being cleaned the way which is normal for animals. After thorough cleaning, they went outside. The smell of pine trees met their cold, wet noses. The sight of a nearly cloudless blue sky and the sound of birds chirping above them. They sat their little tails rotating excitedly in the atmosphere, their ears occasionally twitching as they were listening to the world around them. Raccoons, badgers, squirrels, and other woodland creatures frolicked about the place. Kit Kit and Kit Kat crawled to a watering hole where they saw mule deer, a black bear and a black bear cub with their families. Spotted owls and bats were sleeping during the day. Kit Kit and Kit Kat grabbed a piece of grass and began playing music with it. Musical notes floated into the air like this was a cartoon. The kids at this point relied on a series of fox sounds to communicate with one another, as they would not yet develop anthropomorphic speech until they turned at least a year of age. Until then, they might know a few words, but not to the extent they could make full sentences and know what they were saying. Fun and carefree as their lives seem to be, loyal readers likely know by now, nothing good can last. Chapter 2, The Hunters Guild, Bittersweet Revenge. And here's a scene that, when I wrote it, I was initially in tears as I was imagining it happen in my head and I was getting it going. So yeah. If you feel that way, I don't blame you. but this is your last warning to navigate away from the video if you can't handle the concept of cute things getting victimized. One day when Kit Kit and Kit Kat were about 16 months old, or a year and 3 months of age, they were frolicking through the forest. Their parents were close by when some cute furry creatures were running for their lives. The sound of RVs and gunfire were heard. Kit Kit and Kit Kat's parents rushed them to their den. They were hidden in the den so deep the hunters could never squeeze their fat asses into it. Well, not without cave-digging tools. None of them had such tools. A pair of hunters followed Kit Kit and Kit Kat's parents into the den, crawling their way in. Kit Kit and Kit Kat's parents bit the hunters' faces and got thrown to the ground. They got up and tackled the hunters back out of the hole and bit their groins. The fox parents were yanked off their pants. To say these hunters would not be able to reproduce again would be an understatement. Enraged at being neutered, the hunters ran back to their RV and got their guns. The parents went back into the den to comfort and guard Kit Kit and Kit Kat. The hunters returned to the hole in a fox den and put their scopes inside of it. The hunters shot the two fox parents in the head. Once the fox parents were dead, the hunters crawled into the hole and grabbed the bodies of the parents. The kids were in tears, whimpering quietly. The hunters heard them and laughed. One of them said in an Australian accent, "Nice! Seems these two managed to create quite a few offspring, they did." The other agreed and said in a British accent, "Yeah, though they are probably too small to make the quality coat the boss wants, wouldn't you say, Irving?" Irving said in an Australian accent, "You got that right, Ollie. Their parents, however, are a perfect fit." Irving began carving up the corpses of the parents, preparing the meat to be eaten and making the skins into a fine pelt. Ollie said in a British accent, "Well, suppose Emlux is a wee bit large for these fine skins, but they'll make a dapper rug for sure." Once the carving was finished and the skinning was complete, the two went back to their RV. Irving asked, Ollie, are you sure you didn't forget anything in the den?" Ollie replied, "Nah, Irving, just an old carving knife. I got plenty of them back in the RV." Irving laughed and said, "Yeah, it does seem silly to think anything here would be able to carve a weapon with that, though I seem to have misplaced my dagger somewhere. Then again, I doubt any of these animals know how to use it." Foreshadowing. They went to the truck. Their cabins were not more than a couple miles away. As luck would have it, the lost dagger was outside the den near the waterfall, and the carving knife was inside the den. The kids were crying in fear and sorrow over losing their mom and dad. When they finally stopped, Kit Kit grabbed the carving knife and some pieces of black oak from a nearby tree that had fallen during the attack. He began fashioning a crossbow and wooden arrows. The heads were made of granite, the string was made of hemp, and was very durable. Kit Kat found the dagger and some poisonous herbs, most notably bird's foot trefoil, known for causing paralysis, comatose, and death. Kit Kat began mixing them together into a wooden bowl left behind by a camper. She dipped her dagger into the concoction and readied it for battle. Kit Kat used a needle and a thread as well as some bandage cloth and made a quiver for his arrows. Yes, I know what you're thinking. How does someone lose such oddly specific items? Yosemite National Park attracts many different kinds of tourists, and as a result, some things get lost from time to time as people wander the natural landscape. Once the weapons were complete, the vials originally intended to hold an experimental herb concoctions were filled, and the weapons were appropriately holstered to their waists. Kit Kit and Kit Kat followed the tire tracks until they reached the cabin. Inside, the men were laughing while having a beer with each other. They left their window open without a screen barrier of any kind to keep flies out. The kids saw this as an opportunity they couldn't resist. Kit Kit drew his bow and readied an arrow. He aimed it for the side of Irving's head. After holding the shot for about 10 seconds, he released it. Irving fell from his seat, bleeding out from his head. While he pulled the arrow out, and a piece of Irving's brain was on it, and he died. While was horrified and yelled, "Irving!" He pulled out his gun, frantically looking for the source of the arrow. Time seemed to slow down for Ollie and Kit Kat, their adrenaline pumping. And Kit Kat, with the blade drawn and poison on the tip, stabbed Ollie in the back and in the gut. He was paralyzed and quickly went into a coma before dying. The kids grabbed the pelts of their family members and ran for it. They went back to their den and hugged their parents' remains in sorrow, their weapons still in tow. Meanwhile, Hemlock Peltskins was in his beach house in San Francisco near Fisherman's Wharf. Hemlock Peltskins called for Irving and Ollie on the radio, but no answer. Hemlock Peltskins yelled, "Damn it, I should have known better than to send those imbeciles on this infallible mission. They couldn't do anything right. All they had to do was shoot a couple of San Joaquin kit foxes in Yosemite National Park and bring back their skins. It was such a simple task. Oh well, at least I don't have to pay them. I think I'll try a more subtle approach." Hemlock Peltskins called up a professional nature photographer. "Yeah, is this Ethan E. Prince? I need you to go investigate the disappearance of a couple of my men." "Yeah, thanks, bye." He hung up and waited patiently for the investigation to take place. And that was the end of chapter 2. Yeah, pretty sad already, and just 2 chapters in. But now, I'm thinking, maybe I should have had more build-up when I drew out the sad scene, like what I had done with the second book's characters' parents were, at the very least, we got to know that they would have put their son's needs first, and then, but he mistook it as them not liking him, and then when he finally finds out the truth, they gone. And he had all that time to supposedly form a bond with them, even if only through letters or something, but he never did, because he thought they hated him. Anyway, speaking of love and hate, that brings us to our next story. This one's also a work of fiction, so it might have its usual trappings of sappiness about it. And it's called When I'm Gone. Dear son, if you're reading this, I'm dead. I'm sorry. By Raphael Zoller. It says it's a 9-minute read, so alright. Death is always a surprise. No one expects it. Not even terminal patients think they're gonna die in a day or two. In a week, maybe, but only when this particular week is next week. Is the next week, rather. We are never ready. It is never the right time. By the time it comes, you will not have done all the things we wanted to. The end always comes as a surprise. It's a tearful moment for widows and a bore for the children who don't really understand what a funeral is, thank God. It was no different with my father. In fact, his death was even more unexpected. He was gone at 27, the same age that claimed the lives of several famous musicians. He was young, way too young. My father was not a musician and not a famous person either. Cancer doesn't pick its victims. He was gone when I was young, and I learned what a funeral was because of him. I was 8 and a half, was old enough to miss him for a lifetime. He had died before, had he died before, I wouldn't have memories. I would feel no pain. But I wouldn't have a father in my life, and I had a father. I had a father who was both firm and fun, someone who'd tell a joke before grounding me, that way I wouldn't feel so bad. Someone who kissed me on the forehead before I went to sleep, a habit I passed on to my children. Someone who forced me to support the same football team he supported, and who explained things better than my mother. Do you know what I mean? A father like that is someone to be missed. He never told me he was going to die, even when he was lying on the hospital bed with tubes all over him. He didn't say a word. My father made plans for the next year, even though he knew he wouldn't be around in the next month. Next year we would go fishing, we would travel, we would visit places we'd never been. Next year would be an amazing year. We lived the same dream. I'm sure he thought this should bring luck. He was a superstitious man. Thinking about the future was a way he found to keep hope alive. The bastard made me laugh until the very end. He knew about it, he didn't tell me. He didn't see me crying. My mother picked me up at school and we went to the hospital. The doctor told the news with all the sensitivity that doctors lose over the years. My mother cried. She did have a tiny bit of hope, as I said before, everyone does. I felt the blow. What does it mean? Wasn't it just a regular disease? The kind of disease doctors heal with a shot? I hated you, Dad. I felt betrayed. I screamed in anger in the hospital, until I realized my father was not around to ground me. I cried. Then my father was once again a father to me. With a shoebox under her arm, a nurse came by to comfort me. The box was full of sealed envelopes, with sentences where the address should be. I couldn't understand exactly what was going on. The nurse then handed me a letter, the only letter that was out of the box. Your dad asked me to give you this letter. He spent the whole week writing these, and he wants you to read it. Be strong, the nurse said, holding me. The envelope read, When I'm gone. I opened it. Son, if you're reading this, I'm dead. I'm sorry. I knew I was gonna die. I didn't want to tell you what was gonna happen. I didn't want to see you crying. Well, looks like I've made it. I think that man who's about to die has the right to act a little bit selfish. As you can see, I still have a lot to teach you. After all, you don't know crap about anything, so I wrote these letters for you. You must not open them before the right moment, okay? This is our deal. I love you. Take care of your mom. You're the man of the house now. Love, Dad. P.S. I didn't write these letters to your mom. She's got my car. Or I didn't write letters to your mom. She's got my car. He made me stop crying with his bad handwriting. Printing was not easy back then. His ugly writing, which I barely understood, made me feel calm. It made me smile. That's how my father did things, like the joke before the grounding. That box became the most important thing in the world for me. I told my mother not to open it. Those letters were mine and no one else could read them. I knew all the life moments written on the envelopes by heart. But it took a while for those moments to happen and I forgot about it. 7 years later, after we moved to a new place, I had no idea where I put the box. I couldn't remember it. And when we don't remember something, we usually don't care about it. If something gets lost in your memory, it doesn't mean you lost it. It simply doesn't exist anymore. It's like a change in pockets in your trousers. And so it happened. My teenage years and my mother's new boyfriend triggered what my father had anticipated a long time before. My mother had several boyfriends, and I always understood it. She never married again. I don't know why, but I like to believe that my father had been the love of her life. This boyfriend, however, was worthless. I thought she was humiliating herself by dating him. He had no respect for her. She deserved something a lot better than a guy she met at a bar. I still remember the slap she gave me after I pronounced the word bar. I admit that I deserved it. I learned over the years at the time when my skin was still burning from the slap. I remembered the box and the letters. I remembered a specific letter which read, "When you have the worst fight ever with your mom." I ransacked my bedroom looking for it, which earned me another slap in the face. I found the box inside a suitcase lying on top of the wardrobe, the limbo. I looked through the letters and realized I had forgotten to open the "When you have your first kiss." I hated myself for doing that and decided that would be the next letter I'd open. "When you lose your virginity" came right next in the pack. A letter I was hoping to open really soon. Eventually I found what I was looking for. Now apologize to her. I don't know why you're fighting and I don't know who's right, but I know your mother. She's so a humble apology is the best way to get over this. I'm talking about a down on your knees apology. She's your mother, kid. She loves you more than anything in this world. Do you know that she went through natural birth because someone told her it would be the best for you? Have you ever seen a woman giving birth? Do you need bigger proof of love than that? Apologize. She'll forgive you. Love, Dad. My father was not a great writer. He was just a bank clerk, but his words had a great impact on me. They were words that carried more wisdom than all of my 15 years of age at the time. That wasn't hard to achieve, though. I rushed to my mother's room and opened the door. I was crying when she turned her head to look me in the eyes. She was also crying. I don't remember what she yelled at me. Probably something like, "What do you want?" What I do remember is that I walked to her holding the letter my father wrote. I held her in my arms. Whilst my hands crumpled the old paper, she hugged me and we both stood in silence. My father's letter made her laugh. A few minutes later, we made peace and talked a little bit about him. She told me some of his most eccentric habits, such as eating salami with strawberries. Somehow I felt he was sitting right next to us, me, my mother, and a piece of my father, a piece he left for us on a piece of paper. It felt good. It didn't take long before I read, "When you lose your virginity." Congratulations, son. Don't worry, it gets better with time. It always sucks the first time. Tell me about it. Mine happened with an ugly woman who is also a prostitute. My biggest fear is that you'd ask your mother what virginity is after reading what's on the letter, or even worse, reading what I just wrote without knowing what jerking off is. You know what that is, right? But that's none of my business. Love, Dad. My father followed me through my entire life. He was with me even though he was not near me. His words did what no one else could. They gave me the strength to overcome countless challenging moments in my life. He would always find a way to put a smile on my face when things looked grim, or clear my mind during those angry moments. "When you get married" made me feel very emotional, but not so much as "when you become a father." Now you'll understand what real love is, son. You'll realize how much you love her. But real love is something you'll you'll feel for this little thing over there. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I'm just a corpse. I'm not a fortune teller. Have fun. It's a great thing. Time is gonna fly now, so make sure you'll be around. Never miss a moment. They never come back. Change diapers, bathe the baby, be a role model for this child. I think you have what it takes to be an amazing father just like me. The most painful letter I read in my entire life was also the shortest letter my father wrote. Well, I wrote these 4 words. I believe he suffered just as much as I did living through that moment. It took a while, but eventually I had to open when your mother is gone. She is mine now. A joke, a sad clown hiding his sadness with a smile on his makeup. It was the only letter that didn't make me smile, but I could see the reason. I always kept the deal that I made with my father. I never read the letters before their time, with the exception of when you realize you're gay. Since I never thought I'd have to open this one, I decided to read it. It was one of the funniest letters, by the way. What can I say? I'm glad I'm dead. Now, all joking aside, being half dead made me realize that we care too much about things that don't matter much. Do you think that changes anything, son? Don't be silly, be happy. I would always wait for the next moment, the next letter, the next lesson my father would teach me. It's amazing what a 27-year-old man can teach to an 85-year-old senior like me. Now that I'm lying in a hospital bed with tubes in my nose and throat thanks to this damn cancer, I run my fingers on the faded paper of the only letter I didn't open. The sentence, "When your time comes," is barely visible on the envelope. I don't want to open it. I'm scared. I don't want to believe that my time is near. It's a matter of hope, you know. No one believes they're gonna die. I take a deep breath, opening the envelope. Hello, son. I hope you're an old man now. You know, this letter was the easiest to write, and the first I wrote. It was a letter that set me free from the pain of losing you. I think your mind becomes clearer when you're this close to the end. It's easier to talk about it. In my last days here, I thought about the life I had. I had a brief life, but a very happy one. I was your father and the husband of your mother. What else could I ask for? You gave me peace of mind. Now you do the same. My advice for you, you don't have to be afraid. P.S. I miss you. And that was the end of that story. It was really well crafted. I'm really glad I got to read it for this show, and that I happened to find it on such short notice. I had kind of a busy day. Went to get my second redacted disease vaccine, and I also had to work for a few hours today as well. So, since I hadn't written a script the day before as usual, I had to really scramble with this one. Which brings me to my next one. It's a much shorter piece, but it seems like a good note to end on account of the fact that I just got the vaccine. And the fact that we're in that as of the video's recording, we're still in a situation where this could very well be the reality for some people. But thankfully, it'll get less and less as time goes on. I'm so proud of you, Mother writes letters to son dying of redacted disease. For more than 30 days, Val Laidlaw wrote letters to her son while he was hospitalized with redacted disease. Although she became a cheerleader for her son, the words she wrote have brought comfort to others. Kyle Rose had gone to the North Dakota State University to become a pharmacist. Later worked and raised his family in the Twin Cities and was a proud hockey dad of a girl, his mom said. Because he had asthma, Ruse was careful when the pandemic hit, but eventually tested positive and was hospitalized. Laidlaw told W. Day that she wrote her son a letter the first day of his battle. Dear Kyle, I know you're fighting. It is in your Viking blood. I remember you before your first breath, so still for a moment. Then you breathed in and let out a strong cry, her letter read. You are a warrior. You're fighting a tough battle and you needed another weapon. Now you have it. We're all hopeful and praying for you, Kyle. Every day, Laidlaw continued writing a letter to her son. She never missed a day. I just wanted him to know how proud I am of him and how happy and honored I am to have been his mom, Laidlaw said. The hope was that Ruse would recover and be able to come home and read the letters and share them with his daughters. But just hours before Christmas, his loved ones and friends said goodbye to him on a video call. That's when Laidlaw wrote a letter to no mom could imagine writing, the last one. You put up such a strong battle, Kyle. I'm so proud of you, she wrote. And that was the end of that. I know, kind of a news article, but still. A very heartfelt thing to discuss for this particular show, and I hope in future I'll have more sad fiction rather than sad reality to share with you. With that, this has been Sadurday, and if you like what you see, the playlists are below. I have sources for what I just read below, and with the exception of, well, the book that I read, because you can find that already on the Forsaken Scribe store. And with that out of the way, I wish you, a Chag Pesach Sameach if you happen to be Jewish, and if not, let this be a meaningful week for you, that, and stay safe, and follow CDC protocol to make sure that you are safe in these troubling times. This has been the Forsaken Scribe. Out. Bye-bye.